Oklahoma Sooners key players, still no timeline, but they're progressing well.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, as we do each Tuesday after Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle speak. We're here live with you on the show to just react to everything that they had to say in their weekly press conference. And we'll start with the John Mateer stuff because that's obviously going to be the top storyline throughout the week. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire and USA Today Sports, and we're also going to talk about Oklahoma's defense being legit. We'll talk about what Brent Venables had to say about Arch Manning, but we got to start with John Mateer and Keontez Lewis. Sorry, I didn't have the graphic right before we went live, but now we're right. But on John Mateer, Brent Venables talked about how he's progressing well. He's not done any good on good work yet, which seems to be a prerequisite for Brent Venables to be able to play. He wants them out there in practice. He wants them in game action or in practice action, getting those good reps against Oklahoma's defense, doing the live stuff, doing the third down work, doing the red zone work, being able to go through all of those things. Just because he hasn't done them yet doesn't mean he won't do them later in the week. This is the only time that Brent Venables has to speak to the media and he has to answer questions about it. So there's a very good chance that he could do that on Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday or Thursday or during the Friday walkthrough and be ready to go by Saturday. So here we are. There's a lot of time between Tuesday, October the 7th, and Saturday, October the 11th for Mateer to progress enough to be ready to play against the Texas Longhorns on Saturday. I think Brent Venables is playing this smart. He's not giving anything away. He's relying on the doctors to make the determination for John Mateer and his potential to play and his future down the line. And he kept going back to that. People asked him maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 different times about John Mateer's progress, about whether or not he might be available for this week, how he's doing, if he's throwing the football at all. And Brent Venables just kept reiterating, I'm going to rely on the doctors. He's doing what he's supposed to do. Hasn't done any good on good. Just laying into those simple, truthful statements right now and not having to say more than what he needs to say. Again, a lot could change between now and Saturday. He could be available on Saturday. I think a lot of people seem to think that he is going to be, and there's a lot of potential for that. Pete Thamel of ESPN actually reporting on Tuesday morning saying, sources, Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer is pushing to return this week for the game against Texas. There's a belief that his return is possible as he's reacted well to surgery. Again, ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting there's a possibility. Will it happen? We'll see. For now, and we'll talk about Michael Hawkins Jr. in the second segment. For now, it's Michael Hawkins Jr. getting the first team reps, Whit Neubauer getting those second team reps, and then still Jet New running the scout team. That's your quarterback depth chart as of right now. Again, things can continue to progress and he can be available later this week. On Keontez Lewis, Ben Arbuckle was asked about him and just said there's a process that he has to go through with the medical staff. And obviously very thankful that he's okay. And he walked into the building the next day with a smile, and Brent Venables mentioned didn't have a scratch on him, but timeline is still unknown at this point. So I would be really surprised if Keontez Lewis played on Saturday against Texas. I think it's more likely that we'll see Giovanni Gibson, and we'll see Ivan Carrion playing that outside wide receiver spot this Saturday against Texas. And then we'll go from there. There were no other real kind of injury notes. Eli Bowen made it through his first game action with no setbacks. The running back room seems to be progressing like it should. Jaden Ott didn't have any setbacks as well. Brent Venables talked about the need to get the offensive line healthier. I think they're still a little dinged up. They still got to play better. If you're going to be on the field, you got to play better, whether you're dinged up or not. So here's hoping that Michael Fasusi, Jake Michael, Fabechi Wiwu can continue to progress with their health, all three battling lower leg injuries, ankles, and things like that. Hopefully, as we get closer to Texas, they get healthier and the offensive line is closer to 100% for what's going to be a tough matchup against a tough Texas team. There's not really a whole lot else to say injury-wise. Everybody is pretty healthy. So that's good news. Remember going into this game last year, you had nobody healthy. You were just kind of hoping and winging a prayer that you'd catch some lightning in a bottle and go beat Texas, but there was no lightning, there was no bottle, and you had another really poor performance under Brent Venables in that game. And again, not all his fault. All the injuries and all that transpired in the first 6 weeks or 6 games of the season leading up to it is what it is. It's in the past. You're healthier going into this game. Texas, on the other hand, not as healthy. They got running backs that are dealing with some stuff. They've got some offensive line issues due to just inexperience. And they've got some wide receivers that are banged up as well. And so they're kind of coming into this one as the undermanned team a little bit more, as Oklahoma is heading into it more healthy. Even though they may or may not have their starting quarterback available to them, Oklahoma's still the healthier team, and they're going to have an advantage in that. And I know people don't want to talk about injuries and they don't want to talk about health, but it's a reality. It's a reality of a football game that's going to get played. And it was a reality last year when Oklahoma lost to Texas. And it may be a reality this year if Oklahoma were to beat Texas, that a lot of it's due to Texas being a little bit undermanned. Now, Oklahoma's got the best unit on the field in their defense, and especially their defensive line. If you look across the board at both depth charts and both sides of the ball, Oklahoma, they've got the best unit in their defensive line. It's better than Texas's offensive line. It's better than Texas's defensive line. It's the best unit on the field. And if that unit shows up the same way that they've shown up the first 5 games of the season, that could very well dictate the outcome of this game. And it's wild to think that, because in years past, the units that decided these games were a lot of times the offensive line, the wide receiver core, the quarterback. But no, it's Oklahoma's defensive line, because it's the strength of the Oklahoma Sooners and is going to be going up against an offensive line that's had some struggles in 2025. So a lot to kind of digest and talk about. We'll go through some of Ben Arbuckle's notes and some of what Brent Venables had to say. Both were very complimentary of Texas, and I don't mind it. I think it's fine. We'll talk about Michael Hawkins Jr. coming up, what Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle had to say about those guys here on this live edition of Locked On Sooners. Again, every Tuesday after Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle speak, we just react to what they had to say. We'll do that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So on Michael Hawkins Jr., Brent Venables had this to say. He said he had good awareness and self-awareness. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my notes here. Showed good leadership, led the way from an accountability standpoint when they did their film review and they did their leadership meeting. He said Michael Hawkins Jr. was kind of out front, talking through the things that he didn't do well and the things he needs to get better at, which, hey, you can't control everything, but you can at least own everything, right? You're not always going to be perfect, but you can at least own the ways that you need to improve. And I've always felt that Michael Hawkins Jr. was a very mature quarterback and a very mature player. Even as a true freshman last year, he showed a lot of maturity. And I think that leads to leadership too. When people realize and see that you're willing to take accountability for the ways that you have to get better, the things that you didn't do well, it allows other people to follow you a little bit easier. It allows other people to see their own ways in which they can be accountable, in which they can be better. And it helps raise everybody. And so I'm excited, man. I don't know if Michael Hawkins is going to get to play this week, but I'd kind of like to see him play some, because I think that dude needs a little bit of redemption against Texas. I think this is a guy that is a talented player when he's locked in on his fundamentals. And Ben Arbuckle mentioned that. He talked about how he did some really good things, but then sometimes let his fundamentals get away from him. He said he played confident, had great eyes, was on point a lot of times, had good command, good awareness of what was going on, played really well, prepared great. He needs to clean up his footwork and his timing. And I think that's, going to be true as he continues to develop. Footwork is one of the most important things in a quarterback, because if your footwork isn't right, a lot of times your upper body's not going to be right either, or you're going to be forced to do some awkward things with your upper body. So getting the footwork cleaned up, I don't know how much you can do of that in a week, but continuing to kind of drill it and build your foundation upon that. Peyton Manning, he wasn't the most athletic guy. I mean, he was a very unathletic guy. Eli Manning, same way. But the things that made them so good was they were so technically sound every single snap. They were so good. So that's the thing that Michael Hawkins Jr. has to focus on is, okay, yes, the off-platform throws, the sidearm stuff, that's all real flashy and makes the highlight reels and all that jazz. But if you want to be great at quarterback, it's the consistent stuff. It's the little things that you do right every single snap, down in and down out. So hone in on that footwork, continue to improve that way. And again, all the talent is there. He's got the arm strength. He's got, the ability to see the field, and he's got good accuracy. Sometimes his arm strength kind of takes over and I think messes with his accuracy a little bit. And sometimes that footwork does. But when he's set and he has a good drop and he lets it loose from a good foundation, he makes really nice throws and really nice reads. So I'm excited to see how he continues to progress. Brent Venables said this about Michael Hawkins Jr. He said Mike had good awareness and self-awareness, 100% conversion rate in the red zone. He was really impressed by that. Made good decisions, played like plays he'd like to get back. There were plays he'd like to get back, room to improve in route detail and in protections. And so I think, there again, just like everybody on the team with Michael Hawkins, there's room to improve. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with this guy having areas he needs to continue to work on. It's going to be a tough matchup, whether it's John Mateer or whether it's Michael Hawkins Jr. Obviously, I'd feel more comfortable if it was John Mateer, because he's a more experienced player. He's been in the battles a lot more. He's produced a lot more. Michael Hawkins Jr. is still got a lot of room to grow and develop and has a lot to prove still. I thought one thing that Brent Venables talked about that was really interesting was, so he was asked about how difficult it was to have a mature team in the transfer portal and the NIL era. And he said that it's so difficult because it's hard to find guys that are selfless. It's hard to have a selfless team. And I think what he was really saying was that the team that we are watching right now is a selfless team. They're a team that's hungry. They're bought into the team, and they're looking for more, not more opportunities elsewhere. They're looking to improve their opportunity here through hard work and determination and production and play. And I think that should be an exciting thought, an exciting testament to this team for Oklahoma fans, is that the coach sees a team that isn't about their own individual accolades. They're a team that's about seeing the team succeed. And when the team succeeds, everybody succeeds. Because in today's college football, it's NIL driven, it's opportunity driven. And if you're not getting enough, playing time right now, you're looking to maybe move on to somewhere else. If you're not getting enough NIL right now, you're maybe looking to move on to somewhere else. But the fact that Brent Venables can look at this team and he says it's a selfless group and they're a hungry group, they want to have a lot of success, dude, that's exciting. And it's why you can come out of games, even like Kent State, when they didn't play great, they didn't play clean, they weren't at their best, and you can have a little bit of optimism and a little bit of hope about the trajectory of the team because you know that they're not settled and they're not satisfied with anything. So when Brent Venables rips into them, even after a 44-0 win, they can see it and they can receive it and they can be like, yeah, you know what? We weren't that good. We could have played a whole lot better than what we played. And we've got to play a lot better this next week against Texas. You have to. Texas isn't going to give you anything. And if you don't show up with your A game, you don't show up with your A+ intensity, your A+ focus and A+ discipline, you very well could be quote unquote upset. I don't know if I'm going to call it an upset because remember, Texas was the number one team in the nation coming into the season. Texas was the hype. Texas was the national title favorite with the Heisman Trophy favorite. So just because they lost twice, I'm not going to sit here and act like they're the underdog in this one. No. They're very much a team to be reckoned with. Somebody's asking in the chat if there was anything said about Mateer. What Brent Venables said about Mateer, he said he's leaning on the doctors. He's done his normal protocol and hasn't done any good on good work. He's not throwing yet, but Brent said when he's available, he'll let us know. And I really do feel like Brent Venables is just playing coy here. This is a guy that doesn't have to tell the media anything. I mean, there's no fines if he, doesn't divulge the truth to the media. The availability report, that I think holds a lot more sway. And so we'll see where Mateer is on Wednesday, which I imagine he'll be questionable Wednesday and Thursday. If he upgrades to probable at any point in time, I don't think it'll be till Saturday morning. So yeah, on Mateer, we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know if we're going to get to see him or not, but I think we will. Elsewhere, Ben Arbuckle was pleased with the growth of the running game. He said there were things that they were able to build on. They were able to execute. They weren't perfect, but they took the coaching and addressed the things they needed to and took a good leap forward. And that's an encouraging thing, is that the coaching staff feels like it was a step in the right direction. It's got to get better and it's got to continue to get better. And it's got to be better this week. You've got to be able to run the ball efficiently against this Texas team so that Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill Jr. and that defensive line, they're not just able to pin their ears back and tee off on the quarterback with the pass rush. You've got to be able to run, got to keep ahead of the chains, got to keep them off balance so that you can get into your play action game. You can get into your read option game. If you're not running the ball effectively, there's no reason to focus on anything but the passing game. They can drop guys into coverage and say, hey, you can't beat us with 6 guys in the box. So got to go run the football. Got to run it better. And if you want to help Michael Hawkins Jr. out, you got to run the ball. Arbuckle also talked about Ivan Carrion. Just said he was really, really consistent in the game, was on par for who he's been in practice. And he had the big, catch and run for 32 yards, I think, and had a chance at another big catch and run on an over route, except it was just off his fingertips as Michael Hawkins, threw a fastball to him. And I think Michael Hawkins puts a little bit more touch on that, just takes a little bit of juice off of it. And Carrion, he catches that and he's able to have another big play. So I'm excited about that. I think we'll see more Ivan Carrion this week, along with Giovanni Gibson. I think those two will split reps at that other outside wide receiver position. Need a big bounce back game from Deion Burks. He's kind of gone quiet over the last couple of weeks as Isaiah Satania has emerged. Now, Satania's been great. He's been awesome, but you need a secondary option as well. And Burks needs to find some big plays in the passing game to just remind everybody how good he is. So excited to see what he does there. And then let's talk Texas, because the coaching staff was very complimentary of the Texas Longhorns. And we'll continue to kind of break down some of the things that they had to say during their weekly press conference. We're going to have so much coverage for you this week. We had, somebody's asking, is Lewis going to play? I really doubt it. I think that it's going to be Giovanni Gibson and Ivan Carrion on the outside. I just don't know if they'll want to put him back out there. He's had 2 pretty significant scares in like 3 or 4 weeks. So I think it's time to just kind of pull him back a little bit and just make sure that he's really, really okay. Him playing or not playing in this game, to me, isn't make or break. He needs to be okay. We just need to make sure that he's okay. We'll go through some of your comments here in a little bit. Will, thanks for joining us here on the lunch hour. I hope you have a great rest of your day at work. But let's talk about just more what Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables had to say coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. College football is back, and we couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, and the energy in the stand, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, and that's why we use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. So go to the Game Time app. You can see great deals even this week for the Red River Showdown. You can take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. And today's episode is also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Go check out Abbey Road Catering with Chris Abbey. Her and her team do a fantastic job with any catering event that you could have need for. Immaculate displays, fantastic specialty drinks. They catered our wedding and left our guests completely satisfied with their meals. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ooh, sorry, I'm trying to set my iPad up and I'm trying to get these notes out so that I can just kind of talk through them, but I don't know where to put my hands. I don't know what to do with my hands. Let's just respond to some of your comments here real quick. Howdy y'all says, if Mateer plays, we win by 14. If Hawkins plays, we win off of defense and field goals. That's kind of where I lean as well, that I think Mateer gives us an edge against their defense. Hawkins, I think, is capable of making some plays. But, you're probably going to try to play more of a defensive field position type of a game if it's Hawkins. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. I'll have my prediction, and Jay will have his prediction later in the week as well. Got Anthony Reinhardt says, I know a couple of Texas fans that are already chalking this game up as a loss. I'm not going there yet. I'm not doing that. I'm not just saying, hey, it's automatic dub and Oklahoma is easily going to get this one. I still have a lot of respect for Texas. They may not be the number one team in the nation. I never thought they should have been the number one team in the nation to begin with. And I still think that they have a lot of talent that can create problems for Oklahoma if they're not careful. And if they're not locked in, if they're not keyed in on every play, if they're not assignment sound and disciplined, and Brent Venables said as much as well, that this is going to take a great effort from Oklahoma's offensive line, from Oklahoma's defensive line, and it's going to take a great game from this team to be able to get a win against Texas. And that's the mentality that he needs to have. And that's the mentality this team needs to have, because as much as that loss against Florida looked bad because Florida was unranked, listen, it's hard to play in the swamp, especially, when it's not quite cool out yet. And, Arch Manning is making, a big time road start in the SEC. It's a tough place to play. That is not an easy place to play. So let's not sleep on Texas. Let's go into it. I mean, being confident in Oklahoma, but understanding that, hey, Texas has still got some players, man. Ryan Wingo is one of my favorite players to watch in the conference. He's just dynamic with the ball in his hands. Seb N says, even many non-OU fans pick Oklahoma over Texas this weekend, even though they are favored 2.5 points, because they think Texas O-line is not great this year and Arch. The Texas offensive line is not great. It's not good. Venables said, it's a highly thought of, and it was a highly recruited offensive line, and they're well coached. Both of those things are true. Will they be able to hold up to the onslaught that is Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams, David Stone, Grayson Halton, R. Mason Thomas, Taylor Wine, PJ Adebawari, Marvin Jones Jr., Danny Okoye? All of a sudden, will they be able to hold up? That's going to be the question. That's going to dictate a lot of how this game goes. Arch Manning has turned the ball over a lot. He's got 5 interceptions. He's fumbled the ball twice. Can Oklahoma capitalize on some of his willingness to throw into coverage, some of his willingness to throw while under duress? They may not get as many sacks this week as they did last week or even against Auburn, but they may force Arch Manning to put the ball in some harmful situations. So the key, though, is as they're rushing, not to get out of their rush lanes, to stay disciplined in their rush lanes, stay disciplined in their assignments, because Arch Manning certainly has the athleticism and the speed to break a big run if you allow him to get out of contain. So that'll be a key to watch in this one. Darren says, why did Giovanni barely play against Kent State? Well, let's go look at the snap count real quick. And I can tell you how many snaps he played real fast from Pro Football Focus. Keontae Lewis played just 2 snaps. I think mostly they just wanted to get him out there again. I don't think that they were all that concerned with making sure he had a full complement of snaps last week. I would have kind of bet that they gave him 20, but kind of surprised that they didn't. But they like Ivan Carrion. They think that he's a really good player. And when he got thrown the ball, he made a play. He had the one that went through his fingers. I think it was just a little bit off target. If that's a little bit closer to Carrion's body, that's a big play, and he's having another great catch. So I think that they'll continue to ramp Giovanni up. I don't think that they're going to rush him back to a full complement of snaps just yet, but they wanted to get him through warmups, get him out on the field. He got to make a play, got to catch a ball. So here we are. Will says, I work with a Texas fan. He's done with Arch and wants the backup to start. I think that's a little bit much. I think Arch is a good quarterback. I don't think he's getting a lot of help right now. I think the same could have been said for, Jackson Arnold last year. I think the same could be said at times for the run game at Oklahoma this year, just not getting a lot of help. I think he's a good player. Is he the Heisman favorite? No. Is he a great player? Is he a future number 1 overall pick? Not necessarily right now, but he could grow into all that, and he can continue to develop into all that. Just right now, he's still a quarterback in development, and that's an okay thing to say. Frankie, we discussed this a little bit earlier, that Pete Thamel of ESPN, if you guys missed it, is reporting that John Mateer is going to push to try to play, and that there are people that are optimistic about that. His words exactly were, John Mateer is pushing to return this week for the game against Texas. There's a belief that his return is possible as he's reacted well to surgery. So there you go. He's reacted well to surgery. There's a belief that it's possible. We'll see if he does or does not. No, it's all good, Frankie. It's all good, man. Appreciate you bringing that back up for a lot of the new people that just hopped in. So we've had a lot of people just kind of join the live here recently. So I appreciate you bringing it up so that I could bring it back up. Richard Young says the O-line is going to be really important for Hawk. Absolutely. For him or for John Mateer, whoever ends up playing, the offensive line has to play better than they did against Kent State, especially in the pass protection situations. And they've got to run the ball. It's really important that Oklahoma runs the ball, runs it efficiently this week. Got to average like 4 yards per carry. If they can get to 5 yards per carry, even better. I just feel like Torrey Blaylock is due to kind of hit a big one. And he leads the team in, runs of 10 yards or more and runs of 15 yards or more. But I really feel like he's due to hit that 40-yard run or that 50-yard run or take one or get one that goes the distance. He feels so close to hitting a big one like that I think it's I think it's going to happen at some point, whether it's this week or next week against South Carolina. Maybe Oklahoma sees something in the way that Florida ran the ball on Texas that they're able to take advantage of. And if they are, that's going to allow things to be more efficient for Oklahoma's offense. Run game got to be there. It's got to be critical. You got to be able to run block and pass protect. What else? Oh, Brent Venables was asked about the dog pound moniker, and that I guess David Stone and the defensive line calls themselves. And he said he loved it. You know, I expected him actually to be like, oh, I don't pay any attention to that. I'm not all that interested in that. But he's like, yeah, I love it. I love that they are creating an identity for themselves. And yeah, man, they're playing like a bunch of dogs. They really are. They're getting after it. They're playing hungry. They're playing angry. They're playing fierce and ferocious. And they're not giving offensive linemen any plays off. It's a relentless effort from that defensive front. And that, again, is going to be the difference in this game. If Oklahoma's defensive line shows up with the same relentless intensity that they have the first 5 games of the season, it's going to be a long day for the Texas offensive line and for Arch Manning, and in back-to-back weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that Arch won't make some plays because he's a capable quarterback, but he might take a lot of hits in this one. And I think he will. I think the Oklahoma defense is going to get to him several times. I mean, they're capable of winning with just 4 and getting pressure on the quarterback. From their starters to their 2 deep, they've got a number of dudes that can create pressure on their own. And the stunts that they play and the games that they play, they do a fantastic job on that. Barry Trammell asked about whether they were practicing indoor in order to protect people from seeing John Mateer's hand or prevent people from seeing him throwing. And he's like, no, it's just really hot out. It was 90 degrees and we wanted to be mindful of that. But I got to imagine there's also a little bit of that as well. Like, they didn't want a Lincoln Riley, Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams situation from, the dorm rooms or whatever building it was where the guys from OU Daily got video of Caleb Williams taking first team reps. So yeah, that's why they practiced inside, quote unquote, according to Brent Venables. And then Charlie Rice asked, what's going on with Tatum? I don't remember seeing him this year. Is he still suffering from fumbleitis? He hasn't played this year because he's been hurt. He's been hurt dating back to fall camp, hasn't been healthy. I think you may not see him this year. If he very well may redshirt. They didn't redshirt him last year because they needed to play him. And so now you have an opportunity because you've got Torrey Blaylock playing well. You've got Jaden Ott kind of coming on a little bit. You got Javonte Barnes, who you can throw in there in third down situations that you don't necessarily have to play Taylor Tatum unless he just gets back and he's like, hey, I'm the best option you've got. Then by all means play him. But if you have the opportunity to, maybe redshirting him this year isn't such a bad idea. Let's see. Brent Venables said, getting pressure on Arch will be a big part of the game. He's talented, tough kid. Loved the way that he battled. Sorry. Jay put that up there. Giovanni is on a snap count restriction right now. That's what's going on. Yeah, Brent Venables said he appreciated Arch Manning's courage, has tremendous arm talent, a great athlete, great pocket presence, great weapon as a dual threat guy. It's going to come down to containing that dual threat ability for Oklahoma's defense. I'm going to say Gravy because I don't know what the X's are for, but Raw Gravy 52 says, what about Xavier Robinson? That's a curious one. I'm guessing that he's banged up because you saw him earlier in the season. You just haven't seen him much lately. So that's my guess, is that he's just banged up. He's dealing with something. Anthony Reinhardt, if we get into a 3rd and 3 under 3 or 4th and 1 situation, should we see if Canick can run those? I have no doubt that he can run the ball in those situations. That might be something that they're saving to use Jaren Canick a la Brock Bowers of Georgia in a multifaceted role with this team. That's kind of what I'm banking on, that they're saving some of that so that they're not giving it away when they don't have to. But it very well could be one of those games where Now you throw all the stops at Texas and you use Jerick in every way that you possibly can, because that dude's a weapon. He is 100% a weapon, and he's a guy that is going to create big plays for you as a pass catcher, could create big plays for you as a runner. I think there's a lot of possibility and potential there with Jerick in this offense. Yeah, that's going to do it for this live edition of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for being here. We're here every single week talking Oklahoma football, reacting to what Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle had to say in their weekly press conferences. We'll have our regularly scheduled programming for you. We had it early this morning. Great show that Jay and I put together. We'll have another great show later today as Jay and I talk with Locked On SEC's Chris Gordy about this upcoming matchup. We'll have our regular show again for you tomorrow morning. And then we'll also have shows with Locked On College Football, Spencer McLaughlin. We'll have a show with the Portals, Brian Smith, talking Oklahoma, Texas, as well as potential transfer portal needs that we might see coming this offseason. We'll have our crossover with Locked On Longhorns, Brad Kellner, coming at you Thursday. So much content for you this week. It's OU Texas week. So we got to give you all the thoughts, all the opinions coming from a variety of directions. So make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you haven't subscribed to the show, please do so. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers by the time OU Texas kicks off on Saturday. And we're close, man. We're just over 300 subscribers away. So if you hit that subscribe button, you can help us reach our goal. And we thank you for that. So again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, for my guy Jay, I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.